Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Judas. And it's always a bit scary when you only have one red health and you walk into the first room and it has a mini-boss, and especially someone like Slot. Like, usually I won't say he's that big of a deal, but he does spawn explosions which I think do one full heart of damage, and especially when he has two little helpers on the side which also spawn IPK shots, it can be quite dangerous. So I just decided to use the Book of Belial right there to kind of have a little bit more safety, and I hoped, that maybe through the rest of the floors I'll get enough charges that I'm able to use the Book of Belial on the boss again. Maybe the only other saving grace here was that the floor was really nice, right? We got the meat, which is obviously great because we not only get health but also a little bit of damage, which is even more potent on a character like Judas because he has a higher inherent damage multiplier, and also because, we just have more health. And I also was able to get 5 cents, and I decided to use that on the very first shop to try and buy that spirit heart, which I felt was gonna protect me, but it also, I think, enabled me to get some really good items on the very first devil deal, as I actually beat Pin here. And when you see items like Dark Matter and Sacrificial Dagger, like, both of these items are good on their own. Obviously one of them is a damage upgrade and the other one is just a really good orbital, but together they have, I would say, kind of an anti-synergy. Just because, you fear the enemies, they kind of run away from you, they become a bit more unpredictable, which means that using your Sacrificial Dagger becomes a little bit more dangerous. So it's just one of those things which I generally don't like picking up together, but obviously the downside isn't as big as the upside that you get, and the fact is you can still use both of these items, I would say, individually. Like, when you're shooting at enemies you can deal damage because of Dark Matter, and if you just want to get close and personal you can do that with the Sacrificial Dagger. And later on we get the Holy Mantle, which definitely kind of cements this as the right choice, but it's just maybe something that I kind of took note of as I was actually playing through the daily, and I felt like it was one of the things worth mentioning. Sometimes you get items which maybe don't work really that well together, but because both of those items are strong individually, you're still, I would say, forced to pick them up. Another thing maybe that was very unique to this run is that there were a lot of High Priestess cards. And in a majority of cases, that the hardest time you're gonna have on Judas is not really gonna be the boss fight, it's just gonna be going through the rooms. But luckily, because of the high damage set, that wasn't even that big of an issue here. And having High Priestess cards really did help me in quite a few situations. Like, at one point I used it when I went into the Devil Deal because there was Krampus, and because he doesn't have so much HP, you can pretty much instantly one-shot him with just one single use of a card, the foot comes down, and that's pretty much it. So it's always nice to have, I would say, a contingency plan in a case like that, where you're just able to deal with a boss fight, get the free items, and basically have no risk of taking damage. So this run definitely had a lot of that, those good things in that regard, and it did kind of turn out to be, I would say, a very straightforward daily past a certain point, and just because, there were so many good things. But even so, that there were I would say, so many positive benefits, like the Sacrificial Dagger, the damage upgrades, in this case the Holy Mantle, Sad Bombs. All of these are really great items, but still it's a mom's food daily, so we still have to kind of consider and check other things out. Like, at this point I was kind of worried, that we tried to get to boss rush, that we tried to use a sacrifice room at a certain point. First of all, I didn't have enough health to really justify a sacrifice room. Obviously I can just go take it and start playing it and sacrificing my health, because there's no chance that I'll actually complete it and go to the dark room. But in another case, right, it's maybe really worth trying, because there's a chance I'll get 7 spirit hearts, and that's just gonna give me more points overall than if I just go to boss rush. And there's always that dilemma, right? You want to do boss rush, obviously, in majority of cases, but if there is even a slight chance of you getting the shovel or maybe finding another sacrifice room, you would much rather do that, because that's just gonna give you so many more points. So because I was running kind of low on time, I didn't really have a lot of time to explore, and maybe, that would have made my choice, that would have made my choice a little bit easier, because maybe I would have found more spirit hearts or maybe more health as I was actually going through the floor, but I wasn't able to do that. I just had to make a decision. Do I try to make it to boss rush and basically concede myself to finishing there, or do I try to go and find the sacrifice room and maybe use that, because there was one, and because I have restock, maybe if there's a spirit heart in the shop, I can do that and actually buy it. And so I go to the curse room because I thought that was going to be the best chance of me actually getting more spirit hearts, and there were 2 spirit hearts in there, which kind of raised my hopes, and I was like, maybe if I blow up a skull or something like that, I can maybe use that to find another one, and that's enough health to actually start playing the sacrifice room at that point. So I do go to the curse room, I take the red chest, and I get teleported to the devil deal, which has the shovel. So my choice was made easier by just doing that, so I went directly to boss rush. Luckily I was still able to be fast enough to get there, and then I used the shovel to go to the next floor. It was Womb XL, and of course if there is a sacrifice room here, I'm gonna use it, and if I have enough health, of course, and if there isn't, I'm still gonna use the shovel to go to Shoal, and that's pretty much all that's gonna happen in this run. Because I have the Holy Mantle, I can combine that really well with the Sacrificial Dagger, and that's something I just like to do, because I feel like It makes it so much faster and so much more dynamic. You know, usually you have an orbital and you mostly use it defensively because it's not really worth using it offensively because there's such a high chance of an enemy hitting you. But when you have a free shot basically and you can afford to maybe take one hit of damage with the Holy Mantle, then, you know, that I think that's a very good opportunity to just get in there and just try to do as much damage as possible. Even if I do get hit like once throughout the floors, I think the time penalty that I gain, or I would say I don't lose because I don't take more time, is definitely worth the effort. And I think it just feels a little bit better, just feels a little bit nicer actually doing a little bit more damage. And later on I also got Quad Shot, which I also think did kind of help us out with our damage department as well. It's always nice just to shoot 4 shots at an enemy and just kind of deal with them in that way. But besides that, the rest of this run, or let's say this floor, really wasn't all that interesting. There were very basic ones, I would say very basic principles at play here. There was nothing I would say unique. You know, maybe at a certain point we could have broke the game because we did find restock, and if I had maybe a bit more money, I'm like sitting at 70 cents now because I found that room with 5 golden hearts. So if there was a way for me to take damage intentionally on that particular floor, I could get a lot more money. And then of course, if I did go to the shop, maybe I could find a Steam sale, maybe find a way to really kind of regenerate most of that money back. And maybe, you know, that's gonna be one of those breaking strategies which is gonna work out for you. But I decided not to go for it because I feel like if you just get the shovel, that's probably already gonna be enough to really warrant a good score. And at a certain point, you know, I care about a good score, I care about a great score, but if I can be decent, you know, just doing this without taking too much time, I feel like I'm always gonna default to maybe the easier choice. There have been dailies where I break the game, there are dailies where I don't break the game, and today I just didn't feel like doing it. So, you know, that was basically it. And also another reason was because boss rush took so long. I think it took me like 13 to 14 minutes. It was just a very nasty layout with a lot of, I would say, nasty enemies that have a lot of HP, and really I wasn't able to do much to them. I had 7 damage, a 10 tier delay, so it just wasn't really enough to output the DPS that I needed. I got hit quite a few times, so I decided to cut all of that out because it's not really all that interesting to see. And also I would say there weren't really any strong strategies. I did intend to take the Shoop the Whoop into it, but later on, because I found the shovel, I just had to replace it. Obviously you can't forego a shovel on a Mum's Foot run because that is gonna be basically what's gonna give you the majority of the points. With the Algiz rune here, I also wasn't too worried. Satan is usually a fight that ends up hitting me, so I was kind of saving it for a bit. I was kind of doing a little bit more damage, and when I felt I was gonna be safe, like I can beat the enemy in 30 seconds, then I decided to pop it. I just went in there, and of course sacrificial dagger did a lot of work. So overall, I would say this was just a very enjoyable run in all retrospects. I think the shovel wasn't too terribly hidden. Obviously I can see people missing it if they're trying to get to boss rush. If maybe they're a bit slow, you're gonna miss it. That's really gonna suck for you. But if you do take your time to explore, maybe if you play fast, if you're not bad like I am, then you can get to there. It's pretty obvious, and overall, you know, I just think I played relatively decently. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. My item penalty was relatively low, my damage penalty was also relatively low, but then again, there was a Holy Mantle, so I'd expect people to play even better than that. And maybe, you know, the other thing we could have improved on is swag bonus. We did have restock, we could probably do something there, but still, we did manage to rank in like the top 20, and that's always an exciting score to get. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.